Think you know what matters most in a PC build? Think again. For years we've been told a certain set of rules. More is always better, newer is always faster, and expensive always means higher quality. But as we head into 2025, the landscape of PC hardware has shifted. The components have gotten smarter, the software more optimized, and honestly, the marketing has gotten a little out of hand. It's created a whole new generation of myths, half-truths, and just plain bad advice that can lead you to spend way more money than you need to for the performance you actually want. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, chasing the highest numbers on a spec sheet. But building a PC isn't just about assembling the most powerful parts you can afford. It's about building a balanced, efficient system that's perfectly tailored to what you do. Whether you're a gamer, a creator, a student, or just someone who wants a reliable desktop, understanding where your money truly makes an impact is key. It's the difference between a good build and a great one. So today, we're going to cut through all that noise. We'll look at the data, run some tests, and get to the bottom of what really matters. So, what if I told you that 32 gigabytes of RAM might be overkill for your gaming rig? Or that the latest greatest GPU isn't the smartest buy? Or that your choice of motherboard has less to do with speed than you think? These are the kinds of assumptions we're going to challenge. It's time to separate fact from fiction and give you the knowledge to build smarter. Let's bust the biggest PC hardware myths for 2025. Alright, first up let's talk about RAM. The prevailing wisdom for years has been simple. More RAM is always better, and to a certain extent, that's not wrong. Upgrading from 8 GB to 16 GB is a night and day difference for pretty much everyone. Your multitasking becomes smoother, your games load faster, and your whole system just feels more responsive. But this is where the myth really takes hold. People see that improvement and assume the same logic applies when jumping from 16 GB to 32 GB, or even from 32 GB to a massive 64 GB. The marketing for high-capacity kits reinforces this, making you feel like you're leaving performance on the table if you don't max it out. But here's the reality for the vast majority of users in 2025. After a certain point, you hit a wall of diminishing returns. For pure gaming, browsing, and general productivity, 16 GB is still the sweet spot. It's more than enough to handle the latest AAA titles, dozens of browser tabs, and background apps like Discord or Spotify without breaking a sweat. Pushing to 32 GB? For most gamers, the performance uplift is often zero. You might see a 1 or 2% improvement in some very specific memory-intensive edge cases. But for the extra $100 or so, that money is almost always better spent elsewhere. Like on a faster SSD, or a step up in your GPU. So, who actually needs more than 16 or 32 gigs? We're talking about a specific niche of power users. Think professional video editors working with 4K or 8K timelines, 3D artists rendering complex scenes, or engineers running massive simulations. For them, yes, 64 gigabytes or even 128 gigabytes can be a game changer, directly translating to less time waiting and more time working. But for the average builder and even the enthusiast gamer, buying more RAM than your system can actually use is like adding a spoiler to a minivan. It might look impressive on the spec sheet, but it's not making you go any faster. Focus on speed and latency first, then capacity. Now for the big one, the component that gets all the headlines, the graphics card. The myth here is powerful and persuasive. You need the latest top-of-the-line GPU to have a good gaming experience. Every new launch from Nvidia and AMD comes with flashy marketing, promises of unprecedented performance, and charts showing their new flagship absolutely crushing everything that came before it. It creates this intense pressure, a feeling that if you're not buying the 5090 or the 8900 XTX, you're somehow settling for a subpar experience. This is probably the most expensive myth in PC building. Let's be clear. Flagship GPUs are technological marvels. They are incredible pieces of engineering that push the boundaries of what's possible in real-time rendering. But they are also designed for a very specific use case, maxing out every single setting in the newest, most demanding games at 4K resolution with high refresh rates, often with ray tracing cranked all the way up. That is an amazing goal, but it's not the reality for the majority of the player base. Most people are still gaming at 1440p or even 1080p, where the performance gap between a top-tier card and a solid mid-range option shrinks dramatically. The truth is, the mid-range GPU market in 2025 is incredibly strong. Cards in the $400 to $600 price bracket offer phenomenal performance per dollar. They can easily deliver high frame rates at 1440p in most titles, and can even handle 4K if you're willing to be smart about your settings. Technologies like DLSS and FSR have become so good that they can bridge the performance gap even further, giving you a smooth, sharp image without needing a $1,000 GPU. So instead of automatically defaulting to the most expensive card, ask yourself what you actually need. What monitor are you using? What games do you play? You'll likely find that a carefully chosen mid-range GPU will give you 90% of the experience for 50% of the cost. Okay, let's dig into a component that's surrounded by a lot of confusion: the motherboard. The myth is that a more expensive motherboard will make your computer faster. You see these high-end boards decked out with massive heatsinks, tons of RGB, and marketing terms like gaming optimized or pro level. And it's easy to assume that all that extra cost translates directly into better gaming FPS or faster application performance. You might think paying $500 for a motherboard will give you a tangible speed boost over a $200 one, but for most people, that's just not how it works. The core job of a motherboard is to connect all your components and allow them to communicate. As long as a motherboard has the features you need, the right chipset for your CPU, enough RAM slots, the necessary M2 and SATA ports, and the I/O you want, its direct impact on in-game performance is practically zero. A CPU will perform identically on a $200 B-series board, as it will on a $600 Z-series board, assuming all other variables are the same and you're not doing any extreme overclocking. The performance comes from the CPU, the GPU, and the RAM, not the PCB they're sitting on. So what are you paying for with those expensive motherboards? It really comes down to features and build quality for extreme use cases. You're paying for better power delivery, the VRMs, which is only truly necessary for pushing high-end CPUs to their absolute overclocking limits. You're paying for more connectivity, like extra M2 slots for storage, more USB ports, faster onboard Wi-Fi, or 10 gigabit Ethernet. And of course, you're paying for aesthetics, more robust heatsinks, and integrated RGB lighting. If you're that extreme overclocker or someone who needs 8 USB ports and 4 M2 drives, then a high-end board is for you. But for the 95% of builders, a solid, well-reviewed mid-range motherboard is the smartest choice, saving you money that can be put toward a component that actually does make your PC faster. This next myth plays on our fear of overheating. The idea is that for any serious gaming or performance PC, liquid cooling is a must-have. You see all these beautiful builds online with custom loops and slick all-in-one coolers, and the marketing tells you it's the only way to achieve peak performance and whisper-quiet operation. Air coolers, by comparison, are often portrayed as old-fashioned, loud, and insufficient for modern CPUs. This leads a lot of first-time and even experienced builders to spend a significant chunk of their budget on a liquid cooler they might not actually need. Let's get this straight. Modern high-end air coolers are incredibly effective. Companies have spent decades refining heat pipe technology and fan design, and the results are amazing. A premium air cooler from a reputable brand can often perform on par with, or even better than, a mid-range 240mm AIO liquid cooler, and usually for less money. They are also simpler with fewer points of failure. With an air cooler, the only moving part is the fan. With an AIO, you have the fans, the pump, and the potential for leaks, however small that risk may be. For the vast majority of CPUs, even high-end ones running at stock speeds, or with a mild overclock, a good air cooler is more than sufficient to keep temperatures well within a safe and optimal range. So when does liquid cooling actually make sense? There are two main scenarios. The first is for extreme overclocking. If you are trying to squeeze every last megahertz out of a top-tier CPU, the superior heat dissipation of a large 360mm or 420mm AIO, or a custom loop, is genuinely necessary to manage the massive heat load. The second reason is aesthetics and case compatibility. AIOs can look cleaner in a build, especially in smaller cases where a giant tower air cooler might not fit or could block access to RAM slots. But don't let the marketing convince you that your Ryzen 7 or Core i7 will melt without one. For most builds, a quality air cooler is the more reliable, cost-effective, and often quieter choice. Finally, let's talk about the unsung hero of every PC build, the power supply unit, or PSU. The myth here is simple: bigger is always better. People see the power draw numbers for new high-end GPUs and CPUs, get nervous, and then massively overestimate the wattage they need. They'll buy a 1000 watt or even a 1200 watt power supply for a system that, even under the most intense gaming load, will probably never pull more than 500 or 600 watts from the wall. This is driven by a fear of not having enough power, and the idea that having tons of headroom is essential. While having some headroom is a good thing, going completely overboard is just a waste of money. Most mid to high-end gaming PCs, even with a powerful GPU and CPU, are surprisingly efficient. A system with a Ryzen 7 and an RTX 4070, for example, will typically run perfectly on a high-quality 750 watt power supply, with plenty of headroom to spare for future upgrades or transient power spikes. Using an online PSU calculator from a reputable source is a much better way to determine your needs than just guessing or buying the biggest one you can find. The money saved by choosing an appropriately sized PSU can go towards faster storage or better peripherals. What's far more important than raw wattage is the quality and efficiency of the power supply itself. This is where the 80+ rating system comes in: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, titanium. A higher rating means the PSU converts power from the wall to your components more efficiently, wasting less energy as heat and potentially saving you a small amount on your electricity bill over time. A high-quality 750-watt gold-rated PSU is a much better choice for your system than a cheap, unrated or bronze-rated 1000-watt unit. Quality PSUs provide cleaner, more stable power to your components, which is crucial for system stability and longevity. So don't focus on the biggest number, focus on the right number, and prioritize quality above all else. So there you have it. 5 of the most common PC hardware myths, thoroughly busted. It's clear that the old rules don't always apply anymore. Building a PC in 2025 isn't about chasing the highest numbers or buying the most expensive parts just for the sake of it. It's about being an informed builder. It's about understanding the point of diminishing returns and knowing where your money will have the most tangible impact on your experience. A well-balanced, thoughtfully planned build will always outperform a system where the budget was just thrown at flagship components without a clear purpose. The goal is to create a PC that's perfect for you. That means stepping back from the marketing hype and really analyzing your own needs. Are you a 1440p gamer? Then a mid-range GPU and 16 GB of RAM is likely your sweet spot. Are you a professional creator? Then maybe investing in more RAM and a motherboard with better connectivity makes sense. It's about making smart, data-driven decisions instead of following outdated advice. Your wallet will thank you, and you'll end up with a system that feels custom-built for your workflow. Building a PC should be a rewarding experience, not a stressful one filled with buyer's remorse. By cutting through the noise and focusing on what truly matters, balance, efficiency, and performance per dollar, you can assemble a machine you'll be happy with for years to come. Hopefully, this helps you on your next build. Don't fall for the hype. Build smart, not just expensive. Subscribe for more myth-busting tech tips.